Hello, folks, and welcome to Bards and Books. Welcome to another chat of Leveling Up. I'm joined once again by Nick, and this is He Who Fights with Monsters, Book 2 by Travis Deverell, aka Shirtaloon. So I'm happy to report that, Nick, I enjoyed this one a fair bit more than the first one.
That's good.
The first one, I think I told you I gave like a very generous 4 stars. This one was a solid 4 stars, so it's a step up.
Oh man,
Yes, solid 4 stars.
I can't wait to see more descriptions of 4 stars.
How many different types of
It's
stars?
like it's got a whole rating system there.
Yeah. Moderate, solid,
Yeah,
the tip of the iceberg.
yeah.
Yeah, so this will be, since this is book 2, we're gonna jump straight into spoilers, and we'll cover, basically almost everything that happened. Hopefully, we'll cover what we can. Let's go through my experience with this book. So,
That's a good move.
I started it off. It was going very much in the same vein as the first book. When I started, I wasn't really feeling it. I told you, I think I even mentioned, I'm like, hey, I'm thinking I might just give up on this and go to something else.
Yeah.
Before coming back. And you encouraged me to continue, and I did. And what I did is I restarted the book, the audiobook. This time giving it like my 100% complete focus, trying to get everything that I could, and it went way, way better. But I noticed something. You really need to give it your 100%. Like this, because of his writing style. I find that in like most of his chapters, at least, the first little bit is like him setting it up. This is where we are. This is what's happening, what's going on, and then he goes straight into dialogue and dialogue. So if you're not clued in to that beginning, if you're not paying attention, that dialogue is going to go through, and you're not really going to know what's happening, like where we are, what the context is. So
Yeah.
that's what I noticed after I gave it my 100% focus. I noticed that very quickly he'll be like, this is where they are, this is what's happening, and then straight into dialogue. So that's what I noticed from his writing style.
It is a very dialogue central book, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's a lot of people talking to each other, even just all over the place. Even if it's not the main characters involved, it's like side characters. They're having their little bits. That's most of the book is people talking to each other.
Yeah, I mean, some, like, I think the Wandering Inn and like maybe even a couple of Dungeon Crawler Carl books, I was as we're going through, there is a fair bit of dialogue, but you kind of know where you are. Like, there's some of that context thrown in every now and then. She went to this part of the inn, or they went into this room and started doing this. Here, it's not really like that.
It's not like they don't describe the areas and they walk into a room like they walk into a Mirror's Cloud Palace. It's like there's no furniture in the room because as he goes in, he can just make whatever furniture he wants.
But a lot of the dialogue is more. A lot of the dialogue is more like maybe theorizing and just talking about stuff that doesn't have anything to do with maybe where they are for a lot of it. That's why you got to pay attention in the beginning to paint a picture before things start happening.
Well, I guess he doesn't really repeat himself,
Yeah.
He'll tell you once and you better fucking listen.
Better remember it. Yeah.
So he'll describe something like the, Amir's Cloud Palace. He'll describe it once and then he'll come back to it 10 hours. He's not going to describe it again for you,
Yeah.
So you better kind of like take those first descriptions and just kind of have that in your mind.
Yeah.
Build your own,
Yeah.
I mean, those books are long, so I mean, we can't be continuously,
But as soon as you do that, you realize the sort of structure. It's a super fun book. You know what's going on, and like it's just way more enjoyable. And I mean, I will say for this book, it took a little while to get going. Still, like the first third, like we got a lot of Sophie, gaining her attributes and kind of being an official member of the party, right?
There's a lot of like party growth and that let's stack up all the powers that everybody's getting because everybody gets like 15 20 powers. So doing all these stones and all the building up the powers can kind of wear on you. I've heard it a couple of times, so I'm like, I could just skip this part a little bit. Whereas I know what's going on, but it's interesting how he develops all the powers too. So I liked a lot.
And Sophie did get some pretty cool powers, like a
Yeah.
lot of the wind essence, wind
Mhm.
powers, stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
cool. We got a fair amount of scheming from the bad guys.
Mm.
Some of those
They
like
really
dark...
kind of introduced them. There was no like big bad in the first book till the very end. Now it's like there's some real stuff going on with the bad guys. The cult, what is it called? The cult of the Builder,
right?
And just like the star seeds, and like this implanting thing, stealing, people's minds, basically.
Right. The star seeds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like it make people explode to like I imagine just kind of like a burr, or like probably like a D20 they just explode into.
Yes, and then we move on to Cassandra breaking up with Jason. We had that scene, right? Because of that whole family politics, and everybody's kind of dealing with the aftermath of that battle that went wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I think he got demoted a couple stars too.
Yeah, he's back to 1 star after that. Whereas the whole first book was him building up to like being a 3-star adventurer. Now he's back to 1 star, and he's like taking that hit.
Plus a breakup.
Plus a breakup, plus dealing with the death of his friend, and everything else, and then trying to train Sophie, and she was kind of like, still being untrustworthy of him after everything he's done for her. So
dealing with that.
That's kind of the theme of the book, is that one person's like, well, I'll try to be nice, and then another person's like, well, now I'm just tired of your bullshit. And they're like, oh, I was just about to be nice. Oh no. And then you just have flip back and forth. It happened like 3 times in this book.
Where does this stack up for you? Like, this one better than the first one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read the first one a lot, so it's hard to kind of place it. But I had a tougher time rereading it, maybe kind of judging it, the first one more. I don't know. It's tough to say. I do think you can't like, just kind of had this on in the background. You kind of have to like more listen to this book, while doing something maybe mindless, but not, you can't, you could probably vacuum the house, but you probably can't, you got to play a video game or something like that to it,
Especially the beginning of chapters, you got to dial in just to understand what's going on in this chapter. So
other thing I noticed with that is there's not a lot of like thought talking, you know what I mean? Like you don't really do a deep dive into what is he thinking and then what is he saying. It's like, it's just like, like you're watching a show. You're not getting his inner thoughts.
Right.
You never really kind of dive into people's inner thoughts at all in this. It's just verbal dialogue. Considering this one guy, I've got to say the voice actor for this, very good. Does a bunch of different voices. I think he did pretty
Miller,
good.
Correct?
Yeah, Heath Miller. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so I enjoyed Heath Miller's narration, but I do have one criticism. So I was getting confused sometimes, especially later on in the book when more characters are introduced. Some of the voices do sound a little similar, and I was getting a little confused at that point. So just maybe a couple of voices were too similar to some others, and I'm got a little confused. It took me a little while to understand.
Probably like Cassandra and like Mother and or like what's his name?
Maybe some of the parents or something.
I
can't remember. Yeah,
it can happen. I mean, sometimes like it happens in a lot of audiobooks. They'll be like how it's worded. He'll do a voice for somebody that was there, that's in the conversation, but I think it might be the wrong voice for the line.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, sometimes it'll be like that. It's not very noticeable. It's not very noticeable.
Yeah,
and it happens in a lot of the books.
Okay.
Like Nightcrawler even happens there, but I've read the book a number of times, so I'm like, oh, Now that was supposed to be Neil or
Oh,
whatever.
see, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting, yeah.
What do you think of some of the new characters that are become, or what I should say, what do you think of the party that they have made together?
I think it's pretty cool. So you got Jason, you got Clive, you got Neil,
Yep.
Humphrey. Humphrey's
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool. I like Humphrey.
Yeah.
And then of course Sophie and Belinda join.
Oh yeah.
It's weird because it's not the party I expected. Like in the first one, it's different, very different.
Yeah.
But here, it's like a solid foundation being formed with Jason and a few characters you wouldn't expect. Because
Mm-hmm.
in the first one, like I didn't expect Rufus to be off on his own in this one, but he was.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
doing his
Yeah.
own thing. Rufus and I guess Gary as well. Not a whole lot of Gary in this one.
A little bit, but I think
Yeah.
they're just kind of like going through their, so they're not really adventuring as much. And Gary, I don't know if they totally talk about this already, but like Gary's a lot older than even Rufus. So
Okay.
like Rufus and oh god, what's her name? Farah.
Sarah?
They're a lot younger than Gary is. Like he's a
Okay.
bit older.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
he's taking this a lot harder.
Yeah, it was because Rufus is like one of the main characters you latch onto in book one.
Yep.
And so having him here kind of doing his own thing was you're just like, what's going on here? But things get crazy with him. We'll come back to him.
Oh yeah. No, yeah.
And then continuing on, the other thing that I thought was interesting was the approach from the goddess of knowledge approaching Jason and sort of like kind of bribing him in a sense to worship her.
Yeah.
So I mean, I couldn't get a clear indication of whether it was nefarious or whether there were pure intentions. It could have gone both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the gods are more interested in him because they don't care. It's like a lot of the like high ranking people are like, well, don't you realize that I'm super powerful? And it's like kind of like, oh, if I get him to basically bend the knee to me, then it's like
They've got
I could tell my friends and they'll think I'm cool. That's basically what they're trying to say. Is like, oh, people want him to like, all the gods kind of want him to be under their worship because he doesn't want to worship people.
Yeah,
Or he doesn't care about like he's
not really vain or like
yeah. I don't know about not being vain.
Full of himself
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah.
Maybe in another sense, but
I just doesn't care about like the power structure.
Right.
There
you go.
Yeah.
Not like power hungry, not that kind of or
So.
showing off kind of guy. So I guess so. I thought it could have been something more noble, but like, him and Rufus are kind of taking it the wrong way, maybe.
He says in this book that he thinks that gods are just magic that's been around so long that it's gained sentience.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they're like, all powerful beings. It's just that there's just a lot of magic. And if you have a lot of magic, it eventually makes a god or something like that.
Yeah.
That's his whole thought process. Not that that's true or not.
Is this one of those RAFO moments? Read and find out?
Yeah, I guess so.
So further on. Okay.
I think he talks more about it in the third book. Talks more
okay.
about that in the third book. So I better just kind of like
that's all right.
On that.
we'll move on.
Yeah. Fair enough. Just keep that in mind. Before we do it, what's your thought? Like before we dig
further into this.
Yeah. I want to hear what you think is going to happen with that church. You say that they're
right.
She's kind of misleading. They're misled to think that she's that goddess is not good.
So my theory is that her intentions are pretty noble because she seems like a very noble, pure goddess, and she's a goddess of knowledge. So obviously she knows a lot more than any character probably knows, and it's probably for something to do with the greater good later on. I'm assuming, I don't know. Gods usually have plans for the future, so they kind of do things to prepare for that. So, but I think it's leaning on the the good side. Let's say the good side.
All right.
Those are my thoughts. We'll see.
Those are good thoughts.
The way they approached it, even with the priest approaching Rufus, it seemed like, I guess I could see how it could be taken in the wrong context. I understand Jason's and Rufus's reaction to them, but I think there's something a little more happening, something more going on behind the scenes that they don't know about, and could be for a greater good.
Well, it's like the first book where it's like maybe the god isn't bad, but some of the people that are, worship that god, like the Church of the Healer, they were like kind of shitty there in that area.
This is going to bring me to a part that I want to hear your thoughts on. This was one of the parts that I couldn't really get a strong grasp of, so maybe you can help clarify some things. But the part where the character Jonah is infected by the starseed and he gets like cleansed and then killed, right, by the whole cleansing. So I can't really remember Jonah from book one. I'm assuming he was in book one, right? Maybe a little bit.
So he was in when Jason fought Rick's team. He's one of the guys on Rick's team.
Okay.
And I believe Jonah was the guy that was getting in his face, like, I will show you what it means to fight a Geller. And then Rick's like, he's been here for like 3 months fighting people in the Mirage Arena. He knows about Gellers. He's been fighting Gellers the whole time. Don't be stupid. I believe that to be Jonah, and I think he is kind of like, he was like he does what Sophie does. He was kind of like their defender, and he was defending Rick's team as they were trying to leave, and I guess got caught up and got implanted with the Starseed. Thadwick Mercer as well. They all get caught up in that, as well as a few other people, but he gets left behind. But that's who that guy is. He's part of Rick's team. Okay. And that's why he's so beaten up about it.
I wasn't really familiar with those characters when that scene was happening. I guess I must have missed some of that from book one, but
yeah,
the whole part of him getting cleansed and dying, and then everybody kind of being a little shocked about it and a little hurt.
Which kind of like really shows how bad the bad guys are, which is that Church of the
right. So that was the Church of Purity, right?
Church of Purity, yeah.
Yeah. They're the ones doing that cleansing. Because he just killed him, and then he's just like, oh well, because the priest guy didn't seem. It's just like, oh well, this is
yeah. He's like, I don't. Well, that
I guess
now
we'll do
I know
next time is what he.
Yeah, basically, he's like, oh now I know what's actually the problem. So the next guy you bring in, I'll be able to deal with him properly.
It's like, dude, you just killed someone.
So it really shows how bad it is, because obviously he knows how to get rid of the Starseed, because he's buddied with them. But in order to hide that, he, it's like, oh, he died, but now I know how to deal with it.
That was a big red flag for me. I'm like, does anybody not notice the apathy coming from this priest? Like, this priest does not care at all.
I mean, makes you wonder about all the churches in that world, right? Where the church from the first book, Church of the Healer. How many bad churches are there?
I see.
So I can't imagine oh God, there's that church of like kings or whatever. Apparently there's a church for everything. There's a church of roads and church of adventure.
We'll get a lot more churches later on, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Very spiritual place, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting way to tackle the whole concept of corruption and like control and
power structure,
illusion. Yeah, power structure, that sort of thing. Let's go on to this whole idea of the astral spaces. So I think we learned like the church. Is it a Church of the Builder or
It is a Cult of the Builder.
Cult of the Builder, right? The Cult of the Builder. Are they harvesting these astral spaces to create?
They're trying to pull these from this point on. That they're just trying to pull parts, these astral spaces away. You don't know what for right now, but I believe they just at this point they're just pulling them. They're trying to pull them away from the world, and that's causing major destruction.
Is that not also one of the root causes for that whole battle gone wrong from the first book? I think that's what. Right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Tied to that.
They're like, I guess, because a lot of these astral spaces are what like provide water to areas in the desert.
Okay.
All the oases come from these astral spaces. So they went up there to go figure out like what's going on with the astral space, that it's no longer, providing what these people need.
Mm-hmm.
They go in there and they're looking around, and they get blindsided by the cultists that are trying to rip that astral space off the earth, or off the Palimustus.
Well, I got a better understanding now. It's nice to understand a little more as to why this huge battle took place and why everything just went totally wrong. And we lost Farah. I mean, Farah was a pretty beloved character for me, at least from the first one. So you want to jump into this this vengeance that Rufus is after? I think he goes to a couple places, get some information first, right?
Yeah, I that's definitely kind of where this. Yeah, I guess that's the best move to start off after that. Rufus kind of gets very much like where I feel like some characters kind of go into a different levels of grief, where they're like drinking and try to cope in other ways. Rufus just dials right in, training and researching, and who are these people, how do I fight them the next time they come around, who's funding the cultists and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about all that? Like, how did you find his kind of espionage part of the story, talking in backroom deals and trying to figure everything else out?
I was well, for a long time I was kind of wondering where things would go with him, and then eventually when he figures out the information, I forget which guy he was talking to, but he gets the information, I think, of their lair, basically where they hide out, where they are hiding out, and when he confronts them with that huge Dorgan, okay,
that's his name,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
He's a mob boss for the Big Three.
So yeah, when he got all that information and that huge team he assembled, that was pretty badass. Like, he got all these bronze rankers, iron rankers, with his parents, some silver rankers,
and Mirror's
and
people.
they just go assault that place.
That's at the very end of the book, right?
That
like
is,
it's the final little boom, hurrah.
Yeah,
that's not over.
No, it's not. We got that cliffhanger where he is so dialed in to the person who killed Farah, and then he's just like completely used up. He passes out in the middle of this battle.
And that's the end of the book.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't think he's dead. There's no way.
No, you sure?
If it goes that route, that's like Game of Thrones level stuff. So
shit. I mean, hey, read and find out, as you say.
I can read and find out, but
it's kind of I mean, they killed off Farah.
They did.
Maybe they'll just keep killing off all those bronze rankers as it goes along.
Maybe. I mean,
who dies in the third book?
We know that was like a big crescendo, just like the first one with the battle. Tons of people died. Tons of people died here too at the end. Is Rufus one of them? I don't know. I don't think so, but we will see. That's why I'm like, this is another, what I was talking about. There were looming cliffhangers after the first one. This one, there's an immediate cliffhanger, like you said.
Yeah.
So I am very curious to see what happens with that immediate cliffhanger. But meeting Rufus's parents. Even when Jason goes full Jason.
Yeah,
Rufus's dad. That was hilarious.
Oh, for sure. It's just like hey. Oh, he's like, he's making a show of himself. Well, you know what? I know how to get back at him. Yeah.
He's coming off as this like schemy salesman.
Exactly. Like a guy is like, this guy's trying to sell you a used car. You know?
Yeah. That was funny.
That
was
total Ponzi scheme kind of thing. Like, good.
That was funny. That was hilarious. The other hilarious part, like a laugh out loud moment for me, was Humphrey's familiar turning into Jason.
Yes.
And you get the group approach him like, "Hey, Jason, what are you doing here?" And he's like, I think he's naked and he's got like this
Yeah.
mustache, and he's just like, "Biscuits,
Yeah.
biscuits." You're like, "What the heck's wrong with you?" Oh, that was so
Oh
good.
man.
I like that moment
That
a
was
lot.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was just about to mention that after you said that. It's like what are the good bits? Because he's going through a traumatic time, and you see him, and he's out there naked, and you're like, oh, is that the trauma that he's dealing with? Is now he's naked with a mustache? What?
It's like biscuits. What?
Yeah.
And then it's like Humphrey's like, "Ah, you."
Yeah.
What's his familiar's name again?
Oh, Stash.
He's like, "Stash, what are
Black
you doing?" He's
Stash.
just chasing after Stash.
Do you guys need a drink? I need a drink right now after seeing.
Yeah.
Lots of interesting characters introduced as well. Well, I guess
yes.
the next bit was the astral space that they go into for the competition.
Right. Yes. See,
Which is like,
okay, that right after they arrive at this, what is it? This underwater dome city thing.
Yep.
Yeah. As soon as they arrive there, start facing the trials. That's when I was 100% locked in, and I'm like, okay, this is getting really, really good.
You like that?
I enjoyed the trials part. Yes, everything up to the end there was very enjoyable.
That's got to be one of the better parts of the book. I like I really like how they do that, and I really liked how they did the battles, like how the characters fight. You know, it's got to be tough, that big fight. You have to like look at all your players you have fighting, and like how they're gonna move, and like create a battle plan for the character that he's writing, and it's like really interesting. And using all their interesting moves, like that fortune reels ability. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I really, that's one aspect of this lit RPG that I really like, is a whole team building aspect. Like you got your whole team, the group, and I think you even texted me. You did, and I agree with you 100%. It's like League of Legends style, you know?
Yeah.
Very much reminded me of that format. It's like just team working together. All of them have their strengths and weaknesses, and just work together to take out.
They're just different powers. So they just kind of like, one guy does one thing, stun this guy, a guy attacks. Especially fighting some of those creatures, those you know.
Yeah, like the Bloodroot Vine.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Jason is pretty OP from what we were seeing. He's got the coolest powers.
Yeah.
I'm really liking it. Yeah.
He's got some neat powers. And it's not, there's definitely probably, like he's like, as he says, like Humphrey and stuff has like these big like one-shot abilities, like big hammer power, smash down with a big sword. I totally get that. Where he's kind of more of like a ninja sort of power, where it's like, stab here, disappear, back again. You know, very much like a ninja.
I really like how he just disappears and reappears in the shadows.
Yeah, very cool.
Nice. Like a form of teleportation. It's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where like pretty much all the action happened too. Like that's when we started getting all the action, was that point. I think that's part of why I enjoyed it more as well.
Definitely more of a build-up, bigger choreographed fights, you know, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, but for me, when the trials started, those 3 trials, I think that's when I was like, I like the intellect that he played with there, like the whole tests that they have to go through. And like Jason confronting himself, which was apparently his biggest fear, like how he turns out, I guess.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny too. Him like just debating with himself.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm worried I'll be a shitty person. But it's like, you know, it's just like so sure of himself that he didn't really, I don't know.
They just keep like they keep like gotchaing each other. It's like, say something. And it's like, well, actually, this, and then it's like, well, actually, this.
Yeah, I know.
You know, Jason versus himself. It's a nice spiral we went down. It was funny. So I liked that part. I liked how the second trial basically took place before you even entered the door. You know, because he had to face, I think, this puzzle on the wall while it's closing in.
Yeah.
And how the shade guy made sure he had the right mentality before he even let him proceed.
Yeah, right.
That was nice.
It's kind of interesting. You kind of see right from the get-go that he's kind of gotten to like Jason more and more as the later trials progressed.
I really like when intellect is explored in such a way that's combined with a lot of wisdom, practical wisdom. So I like when authors are able to do that and like kind of nail it. So I feel like that was done pretty well here.
As well as a little bit of comedy where it's like, yeah,
exactly.
Also,
yes.
like not perfect. It's like, and then he just perfectly, did the room. It's like
with comedy thrown in.
Like,
yeah.
He's like, well, I did it right. I did it right. Like, how many people have you done a puzzle? Like, fucking, what the fuck? I did this. Here it is right there.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, oh no. Yeah, he kind of catches that. I think the final one was resolve, testing his resolve. He decided not to kill all those people. Right.
In fact, take him with him. It's like, I'm taking these people. Which ended up being a bit of a problem for him later, but
yeah, that was nice. Maybe I'm just not well versed in these things, and like any little tidbit of knowledge or wisdom is enough to like wow me. I don't know if that's the case or if this was just very, very well done, but I feel like it was just very well done. So that's how I feel there. I like all the themes explored in those trials, and then the final one with his resolve, which was kind of just piecing everything together, it seemed. And then when he goes to get the scythe, he receives the scythe, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, was it taken away from him at the end? I think he gave it up.
Well, at the last bit, it's like Shade's like, oh, nobody gets the scythe, you just get these books.
Yeah.
And then he realizes, or he kind of knows what's going on. He's like, well, I'll just take the book and I gotta go. I'm done. Don't stay here.
Yeah.
Like I don't want anything to do with this. And he gets sent to another room. The Order of the Reaper is still around, basically. And he's like, oh, I shouldn't be here. This is clearly how they recruit people. Like, take this and get out of here. And he's like, no. She's like, I know. I knew you knew.
Yeah. But after that, I think he takes it out of his inventory, and he gave it up? Did he? They kind of wrapped it up and took it or something.
Well, he got the scythe after that. Before, you couldn't get it, but at that point, he's like, that's a fake one downstairs. This is the real one. You can have it. And he's like,
yeah,
but it's like a diamond ranked item or something like that. It's super heavy,
right?
And he couldn't even pick it up, so he had to push his inventory through it.
Yeah. No, but I'm talking about like way after when he hands it off to Amir. I think.
Yeah.
They take it away from him, right?
Yeah, he gives it to him, and he gets the bottle, the flask, and he gets the cloud flask, gets all the fancy legendary awakening stones.
I really hope that later on he gets that scythe back. Maybe when he's diamond rank, I don't know, but that scythe just fits his character perfectly. I feel like he needs a scythe to just complete him. It would be so perfect. that would be the weapon that suits him the best, the scythe.
I mean, that could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, diamond ranks are pretty far away. There's still an iron in this book.
Yeah. I really just have one more point to cover, is the end when they're all opening up their gifts and acquiring these new abilities. Jason gets an avatar of Doom, and I love how he names it Gordon.
Yeah.
This is Gordon. It's like what is this? An eyeball with a cloak and like a blue and a red eye, glowing eye.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
God.
Gordon.
That's Gordon. They're just like, you gotta name him something spectacular. Your name is Gordon.
Yeah. I want to see him use, because he gets that. I think he gets Shade as well.
Shade.
And I think they alluded to Colin, his first familiar, this apocalypse beast. I think it's gonna be a force. Like, it's gonna come more into play later. It feels like, because it's this apocalypse beast. I feel like there might be this crescendo where Colin comes into play a lot more. It's a big part of it. It's cool, man. These like
I dig them all.
Yeah,
I dig them all.
All these ideas being formed here, and like you're just kind of theorizing about it and getting all excited.
Oh God, it does kind of excite me, because it's like, kind of rereading it again. I'm like, this is kind of where things start to pick up again. Like, this is where before things get crazy, and I'm really enjoying rereading it. It's one of those books that kind of gives back to itself, where you can kind of like read it a couple of times
and then
going
catch
through the
and like
series.
catch new stuff or
100%, because as you
more
said,
beneficial.
it's very like you had to restart the first part of the book.
Mhm.
Like if you were to, you know, go through and reread the first book, maybe you'd enjoy it more.
I think so.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe pick up on some things in there. I think that's just kind of how that series works. There's no way you have time for that. But,
No, no, but I am still
maybe if you're
enjoying it.
feeling nostalgic one day, you're like,
Yeah,
you
maybe.
know.
I'm actually very excited now to continue. So I will be tackling book 3 after this, like very soon. I'll be jumping into book 3. So yeah, man, should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We'll be back with book 3. Anything you wanted to cover before we go here?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, you know, there's a lot going on in this book. I mean, if you're following along, hopefully you're reading it too. It's a good series to get into if you enjoy just kind of more of a light read.
Yeah, yeah. It's a
light
good
read, right?
it's a good lit RPG. If you enjoy lit RPG,
Yeah,
you got to give He Who Fights with Monsters a shot for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I think that's going to do it here. So thank you everybody for joining in. As always, Nick, thank you for joining me, and we will catch everybody next time.